Hi guys, thank you so much again for tuning into my YouTube channel. My name is Tando, and this week, as part of our DIY series to redecorate the lounge, I will be attempting a plaster wall art with some homemade tools, store-bought tools, as well as some store-bought items that are necessary for this DIY. So as I go there, that is me opening up a bag of exterior wall poly filler. This is it's like a caulking agent, and it fills holes if you've perhaps drilled holes into your wall, and you can use this item to fill them again. So I tried to go according to the instructions to make it a 3-to-1, that is polyfiller to water, to make myself a slush consistency mixture. That's what I'd be using. But as I went, I realized that I needed it to be slightly thicker. So the instructions on the package actually gave me a pancake batter type of consistency. I wanted more of a soft biscuit, so to explain. So I added cold water to my mixture, and it didn't call for any hot water at all to be added. I just kept mixing as much as I could to just get all the lumps out and all the dry pockets of air that would cause a disturbance once I start making my art piece. The mixing took quite a while actually, because I kept adding water and it got too wet, and I kept adding the polyfiller and it got just too thick. So it's all about how thick you'd want it to be and what you're actually attempting to do with it. A lot of the people who I've seen do a plaster art piece have had their mixture quite thick, which is because then they are doing a more abstract piece that's just requiring them to layer the plaster on top of itself. So what I used instead of buying a canvas board was shelf bottoms. This is from shelves that I got from a drawer that was being thrown out at work. I actually did ask for these, as the drawer was going to be probably taken to a recycling area or probably burnt. I'm actually not sure what the procedure there is, but whatever. I used these shelf bottoms. I taped the edges off just to not get plaster on there, so I would have space to kind of create myself a pseudo frame. And after taping off, that's when I actually started laying on the plaster onto the shelf backing itself. Now, for crafts and many other reasons, I actually keep all my ice cream Tupperware. We actually accumulate quite a bit, so I never really get to be destroying my own Tupperwares or my own plasticware from our collection at home. I just use these, and once I'm done, I don't mind throwing these away, as they really cost me nothing but the ice cream that I had initially bought. And I actually made myself a little sort of like trowel with an ice cream lid. I just cut it to size. I removed the edging, and it was smooth, so it laid the plaster on quite well and with ease. I put on a dollop of plaster onto the board itself and just ensured that it was laid evenly and sprayed well throughout the board. So I kept on adding the plaster in stages and going in different directions just to create texture and cover the entire surface of what I hadn't taped off. So this texture, when it hits light, creates multiple dimensions and actually is what is considered aesthetic about the piece that I'm about to be making. However, I don't want it to be as abstract as most that you see online. I want mine to have a sort of geometry to it and some fine lines, which I will be adding on to the piece with another self-made or homemade piece of workwear. I made that serrated edge from the same plastic ice cream lid that I had been using to smooth out the plaster onto the board. Now, I had actually collected a few of these items before I started making this art piece. The shelf bottoms that I had were 2, and I got those about a few months back, but those are free, as I had said that I'd asked for them. The polyfiller cost me around 35 Rand. The ice cream lids I had at home, which I cut myself, but I did actually try get a serrated trowel from Chamberlains. I got a plastic one for, I think the price of that one was 7 Rand, but I found that the serrations were too far apart and were a shape that was creating too deep a groove, so hence I made myself my own trowel that had serrations in it. I've been trying a couple of patterns, as you can see, and it wasn't quite working out. Probably the angle, the type of strokes that I was trying to get in there, and maybe me trying to do it too swiftly was working against my advantage. Now, I didn't exactly count how many times I actually attempted and had to smooth it over, the different types of patterns that I tried and which didn't work, and the reasons they could have probably not have worked for. But I was doing this using as much of the scrape offs that I could get and replacing it back to smooth it over again. And this happened, I'd say, a good number of about 8 times, until I actually paced myself, looked at more inspiration online, and then calculated my move and how I would be moving my hand throughout the piece itself to get the desired outcome. So this is what I meant in the beginning of the video when I said that this actually takes a lot longer to dry, and it actually dries better when you've placed it outside or in the presence of like a fan or something. So it is air drying, but when the room is not as aerated, it's not so quick to dry, which is good for this purpose here. So now this was the serrated trowel that I bought from Chamberlains, and as you can see that it's creating quite thick strokes. They are more pronounced when I come to think of it now after I've finished the piece itself, but they weren't giving me the effect that I actually wanted to create. So it wasn't as fine or smooth as I wanted. I had figured that the plastic trowel that I had made out of my ice cream lid was actually too long, and it created a weird flow with my hand. So I cut it shorter to just try attempt to get it the size that I needed to be for me to be able to do this with ease and without it being awkward and without me stopping halfway to try carry on the line after it's broken. So after me making that attempt, here it goes, and I was actually able to create a perfect form arch, or as perfect as I could get, and another form on the edge of the art piece over there. So once I was happy and satisfied, I then removed the taping, creating my sort of border for this art piece. So once this one was done, I actually did the second board, and I created a different shape on that one, as you can see, and I laid them out outside to dry, and that took about, like, I actually let them out for at least an hour, and I put them back inside because I was afraid that it would rain on them. So it did take about 24 hours to dry completely. The next day, however, when I did have a look at them, I thought I would frame them as they were, but they actually turned this yellow color. I don't know if that's them drawing from the board color itself and took in the yellow undertones of the shelf bottom, or if it just dries yellow. So I did actually go get myself a bit of paints, some acrylic paints, and I was still not decided on whether to make the frame black or brown. As you can see me putting my paints to the side, I actually finally bought brushes, guys. So I bought myself a 38mm bristle brush and a couple of other art brushes from the Crazy store. The 38mm brush I actually bought from Chamberlains. It was, I think, 30 rand or 27 rand. I can't quite remember. So this is me making an attempt to actually brighten this up using my acrylic paint from the Crazy store. And as you can see, it's like I'm actually just applying varnish to this piece. It did nothing. It laid on, but as I tried to go over it with the brush, it actually just made the piece shiny, which then created the whole look. I didn't want it to have a glossy finish. I wanted it to have a matte, which is true to like a plaster sort of pseudo ceramic type of look. So I went shopping again for some more spray paint. I did not have a white matte spray paint in my inventory, so that's what I went to get. I got this on special at Jack's Paint in Blackheath. I got it for 65 rand. I still have quite a lot left. When I shake the bottle, I can actually feel. The worst thing for me to have done on this day was actually paint on a windy day without laying anything down and making it secure. So yes, that's me jumping up and down, trying to keep the plastic down without it flying onto the pieces of art themselves. And yes, I am calling it art, guys. This is my hard work. It's art, okay? We'll see the outcomes though. However, I laid on about 3 coats, tried to make it as even as possible, but with the wind blowing, it was quite difficult to keep track of how many coats actually each piece had. But yeah, in the end, I did have it as white as I'd actually wanted, instead of it being this it looked like a dirty white, like an off-white, too yellow for my liking. It's not even like a natural sort of nude or off-white. It was just, it looked tainted. So yeah, that's why I went with the matte white spray paint. So then I let this dry in between coats, actually at about 10 minutes each coat. And fast forwarding here, I'm going to move on to the dowels that I'm also going to spray paint to just get as even and matte a black for the frame as I can. I am, however, noticing that the dowels that I did buy were not thick enough for the edges themselves. Hence, I will have to paint the border before laying on the dowels to create this frame. Also, when I did buy these dowels, I didn't buy enough for both sheets or both pieces of art. It actually ended up being only enough for one frame, and I had to cut that with my mini Hackett saw that I bought for 30 rand at Chamberlains. Again, this video is not sponsored, guys, but I do find that a lot of the material I need, especially for paints, wooden pieces, anything of that nature, I will find for less at Chamberlains. However, having been to Jack's Paint earlier today, I did get quite a lot of stuff on sale. So I just suppose it's where you're going for what type of material to just go to the people who produce that, and you will actually fare more. So I am now painting my border just to prevent it from peeking white through the frame that I'm going to create for it afterwards. This was a bit of it's like a tedious-ish type of job because I don't have the most sturdy hand, and I kept going over the actual plaster, which was not supposed to be the case, but I did try tidy this up as soon as I was done, just to prevent it having speckles or black marks. I actually took enough time between both pieces to actually do a border. So once that was done, it took about, I'd say, each piece 10 minutes for the black border that I had created to dry. And once dry, I could then use my wood glue to attach the painted dowels now onto the almost finished piece and create a frame for myself. So this will be a glassless frame, and it was just created by adding on the wooden dowels using the wood glue that I have on screen right now. So I'm just going to put them at the bottom of the dowels, which I didn't paint as I wouldn't have needed to, and also to just create more of an attachment, I added it to the board itself and then just held it down for a little bit, also securing it afterwards by putting on something that's quite weighted to just keep it down and not have it wobble or bend. So I did use my books. I bought myself a DIY manual, guys. I'm so happy with it. And guys, this is my final and finished look, and here's a close-up of the actual art piece and the lines that I created on it with my ice cream spatula that I also created myself. So thanks again so much for tuning in again, guys. Hope to see you next time. Please do share a link and subscribe to my channel. Ciao.